The pain hit me like a hammer smashing against my bones. I was screaming, half naked on a cold metal stretcher, my legs wide open as the prison nurse barked at me to push. I was not just giving birth, I was breaking apart. Each contraction tore through my body while my mind played the same cursed reel on loop, Jasper's hands gripping my thighs, my husband's badge falling to the floor, and the sound of a gun being cocked. I had ruined everything for a few stolen orgasms. And now, with sweat soaking my hair and blood pooling between my legs, I was paying the price. This baby, this beautiful, innocent baby, was coming into the world wearing my sin like a crown. Before I go any further, I want to take a moment to say thank you. Thank you so much to all my amazing subscribers. Your love and support means the world to this channel. To every new and returning viewer who has not yet subscribed, I see you. I feel you. I cannot wait for you to hit that subscribe button because that is the fuel that keeps this channel burning strong. And after you hear this story, I need you to drop your thoughts in the comments. Do not hold back. This one is personal. This one is pain. Let us begin. My name is Monica Lane. I am 33 years old. Born and raised in Indiana. I used to be the woman next door, the soccer mom who baked banana bread and waved at the mailman. Married to Greg Lane, a highly respected officer with the state police. We lived in a lovely 4-bedroom house in a peaceful suburban neighborhood. We had no kids. Only a golden retriever named Sam. But behind all that perfection, I was dying. Greg and I had not touched each other in almost 2 years. Not romantically. Not sexually. Not emotionally. He would leave early, come back late, and his smile always looked like it belonged to someone else. I tried to fix it. I read books. I wore lace lingerie. I even planned a weekend getaway to rekindle our fire. But the fire never came back. It just smoked and suffocated me until one day, he walked into my life. His name was Jasper DeWitt. He was Greg's new partner on the force. 26 years old. Mixed race, tall, muscular, eyes so dark they felt illegal. He was everything Greg was not, charming, playful, hungry. The first time I saw him was when he came over with Greg to watch the game. He shook my hand and held it a second too long. I felt it then. That pulse. That heat. That terrifying spark I had not felt in years. It was wrong, and I knew it. But wrong felt like oxygen. It happened on a Thursday. Greg had left for an overnight shift. Said they were working a gang bust. Jasper knocked at my door that evening, said he left his jacket. I invited him in. 1 glass of wine turned into 3. We laughed. I talked. He listened. His hand brushed my thigh. I should have stopped it. I should have slapped him. But instead, I leaned in. I let his lips crash into mine like a storm. I moaned into his mouth. I clawed at his shirt. And then we were naked on my living room couch, moving like we were born for sin. He tasted like danger and smelled like sweat and gunpowder. From that night on, I became addicted. We met at sleazy motels. In Greg's patrol car when he was not looking. I started telling lies. I said I was at yoga, or visiting my sister. But I was on my back in back seats and hotel sheets, letting Jasper take every part of me. I knew it would end badly. But I did not care. Not until the night everything exploded. I came home one evening to find Greg sitting in the dark, his gun on the table and his badge in his hand. The television was on mute. My phone was beside him. Open. He had seen everything. The photos. The messages. The hotel receipts. He looked at me like I was a stranger. I thought he would shoot me. Instead, he asked me one question, how long? I tried to answer. I tried to cry. But the words caught in my throat like knives. Then the front door burst open. Officers swarmed in. I screamed as they cuffed me. Greg just sat there. Silent. Numb. I was being arrested. Not for adultery. But for conspiracy. They said I had been sleeping with a known criminal. They said Jasper was not just Greg's partner. He was under investigation for leaking police information to gangs. And now, they were saying I helped him. I stood there in my nightgown, belly already starting to swell from a baby I had not even known was growing, and I was being dragged into a nightmare. They shoved me into the back of a police car and slammed the door. And as we pulled away, I saw Greg walk out onto the porch. He did not look angry. He looked relieved. I sat in the county holding cell for 16 hours before anyone spoke to me. No phone call. No water. No answers. Just the echo of my own heartbeat pounding against my skull and the nausea twisting my gut like rope. I kept replaying that moment, Greg sitting still in the dark, my phone open, his badge beside the pistol. He had planned everything. The silence was not shock. It was surrender. They finally pulled me out just after 5 a.m., walked me down a cold hallway barefoot, handcuffed, with mascara dried like war paint on my face. I looked like a woman who had already died. They charged me with obstruction of justice. With conspiracy to aid a federal criminal. With compromising state investigations. With being the fool who fucked the enemy and fed him secrets she did not even know she was holding. I could not speak when I sat in front of the detectives. My tongue would not move. My brain would not believe. Jasper was no longer just my dirty little secret. He was a statewide manhunt. They showed me evidence. Texts I had sent him. Conversations that looked harmless to me, locations, times, mentions of Greg's schedule, but when the lead investigator pieced it together, I saw it. I had given Jasper just enough crumbs to lead a gang straight into a safe house 2 months ago. 3 officers had nearly died that night. And I had helped. I threw up in a trash can before they even finished reading the charges. The news broke the next morning. Betrayal in blue, cop's wife implicated in leaks. My name. My face. My entire damn history. The local paper called me a traitor. My sister blocked me. My mother left one voicemail that said, "I hope your baby dies so it does not have to carry your shame." My lawyer was a thin woman named Ellen who looked like she had not slept since 2003. She sat down across from me in the jail's visiting room and handed me a tissue before she even introduced herself. I did not deserve the softness in her eyes. She had read the charges, seen the tapes, and still said, "We are going to fight." But I did not even know who I was fighting anymore. 3 weeks later, they took a blood sample. A nurse called me over quietly and whispered the result. I was pregnant. 7 weeks. I went numb. Not because I did not expect it, but because it was real now. Because the man who had gotten me pregnant was not just a liar, but a criminal. And because Greg's face was the first thing I saw in my mind. The trial started fast and cold. Greg sat on the other side of the courtroom, dressed in uniform. He never looked at me. Jasper was nowhere to be seen. They said he had disappeared right after my arrest. Vanished into thin air. Maybe he fled. Maybe someone helped him vanish. Maybe Greg did. The idea haunted me. The prosecutors were vicious. They painted me as the manipulated wife, but also the willing accomplice. They showed my messages to Jasper on the courtroom screen. The ones where I told him when Greg would be gone. The ones where I told him where the guns were stored. The ones where I moaned and begged for him to come back again. I wanted the floor to open and swallow me whole. Ellen tried to paint a different picture. She told the court I was lonely. Neglected. Emotionally abused. That I was manipulated by a man who used my body and my bedroom to access my husband's world. It was the truth. But it did not matter. The jury looked at me like I was filth. Like I was worse than the man who shot 3 officers. Because I let him in. Because I brought him into the home of a good man. Because I let him inside me. I cried for 2 straight days. Not for myself, but for the child in my belly. Greg never testified. They said it was to preserve his neutrality. But I knew why. Because if he spoke, he might have said too much. Like how distant he had become. Like how long he had been cheating on me too, with a dispatcher named Carly. Like how he wanted to trap me. To humiliate me. To rid himself of me without the mess of a divorce. I remembered that wink Jasper gave me the first night we kissed. I remembered the way Greg sat in the dark with my phone, like he had known for a long time. Maybe they had both used me. One for lust. The other for revenge. The judge read the verdict in a voice so cold it could freeze water. 10 years. With the possibility of parole in 5. I stood there, belly full of life and hands bound behind my back, and I took it. I did not cry. I did not beg. I nodded. I turned. I walked. They put me on a bus to Indiana Women's Correctional Facility that same night. The lights of the city blurred through the window as I tried to sleep. But I could not stop thinking about the baby. I had no idea how I would give birth. Or what I would tell him when he grew up. Would I say, your father was a criminal? Your mother was stupid. And you were born into punishment? Would I say, you were the one pure thing that came from my filth? I could not decide. Not yet. The first week in prison was hell. I got jumped in the showers. My stomach was kicked. I spent 3 nights in the infirmary holding my belly and praying to a God I had not spoken to in 10 years. I talked to my unborn baby every night after that. You are still here. You are strong. You are mine. I did not get visitors. Not my sister. Not my mother. And definitely not Greg. Then one afternoon, I was called into the visiting area. I walked in expecting Ellen or maybe some state rep. But when I entered the room, my heart stopped. Jasper. In chains. In orange. They had caught him. He looked rough, beard grown, lip busted, one eye swollen. But the moment he saw me, he smiled. And then he winked again. Just like the first night. I froze. I wanted to scream. I wanted to cry. I wanted to reach over the table and claw his face open. But instead, I sat down, and stared. He leaned in and whispered something so cold it burned my skin. You were the best thing I ever destroyed. And then he laughed as the guards yanked him away. I sat there long after he left, shaking, trembling, my hand resting on my belly. He was not coming back. Neither was Greg. This child, this baby inside me, was all I had left. And I would give birth to him in this prison. But I would never let him be born into chains. The pain started just after midnight. I was lying in my cell, one arm under my head, one across my swollen belly. The summer heat had settled over the block like a wet cloth, and I could barely breathe. But when the cramps hit, they did not feel like heatstroke. They felt like the end. I called out. First once, then louder. The other women shouted for help as my screams echoed off the concrete walls. By the time the nurse arrived, my jumpsuit was soaked with sweat and something else. My water had broken. They rushed me to the infirmary. No family. No flowers. No warm hand to hold. Just fluorescent lights and gloved hands. The nurse was efficient, cold, and irritated. She had done this before. She did not see a woman in labor, she saw another inmate who had made bad choices and now wanted sympathy. But I did not want sympathy. I wanted peace. I wanted to bring this child into the world and tell him he was more than the sin that created him. I pushed. Screamed. Cried. Bled. And after what felt like eternity, I heard it. A cry. A perfect, beautiful, angry little cry that split me open all over again. They cleaned him and handed him to me for exactly 5 minutes. 5. His eyes were closed, his fists clenched. He was warm. Soft. So alive. I kissed his forehead and whispered the first truth I had ever spoken without shame. You were born in prison, baby, but you are not a prisoner. They took him from me after that. It was policy. Inmates were only allowed brief contact unless they were accepted into the special in-house parenting program. I had applied but was denied. Too high risk, they said. Too scandalous. So they placed him into state custody. Temporary foster care, pending DNA testing and a decision from the state on paternity. There was no question in my heart, Jasper was the father. But legally, the system needed proof. Greg had not contested the child. He had not called. Had not written. As far as the state was concerned, he had signed the boy away without blinking. Weeks passed. Each day I felt more hollow. I went back to work duty, sweeping the cafeteria floor, washing laundry, folding sheets for a bed I would never share again. I spent every spare second writing in a notebook, letters to my son. Dozens of them. I hid them under my mattress, praying I would live long enough to give them to him. The other women in the prison had stopped judging me. A few even offered support. They said I was strong. I did not feel strong. I felt like bones barely held together by breath. Then one morning, I was called to the warden's office. That never happened. I walked in, nervous, hands trembling. The warden. A large woman with sharp glasses and no patience, slid an envelope across the desk. From your ex-husband, she said. I stared at it. I had not seen Greg's handwriting in nearly a year. Inside was a letter and a photograph. The letter was short. Cold. But it punched me harder than any slap. Monica. I do not forgive you. I do not hate you. I just do not care anymore. But I thought you should know the truth. Jasper was working for the gang before he ever met me. He got assigned to me as a joke, because someone up top knew about my affair with Carly. They figured he would either ruin my marriage or get killed trying. You were never his target. But the moment he met you, he made you one. He used you. And I let it happen. Because I wanted out. Because I did not love you anymore. I hope your child never learns who his father was. And I hope you rot slowly, piece by piece. Greg. There was no signature. Just the bitterness of a man who had gotten his revenge in the most silent way possible. The photo was of the baby. Smiling. Wrapped in a blue blanket. Eyes wide open. He looked like neither of us. He looked innocent. Tears spilled from my eyes before I could stop them. I spent the rest of that day alone. I stared at the ceiling of my cell and asked questions no one could answer. Had I deserved this? Had I ruined my own life? Was I a victim, or just a willing fool? The truth was bitter. I had made choices. I had let lust blind me. I had betrayed a man I once loved and trusted a man who never truly saw me. But the truth was also this: I had created life. And I had survived. Months later, I earned parole for good behavior and cooperation in Jasper's case. They had caught him again, this time in Detroit, running with a new crew. He would serve 30 years without the chance for parole. I stepped out of the gates with a single bag of books, a crumpled letter from Greg, and the will to be more than a broken story. My son had been placed with a kind foster family who had agreed to let me reconnect slowly. The first time I held him again, he grabbed my necklace and laughed. It was the most beautiful sound I had ever heard. So yes. I gave birth in prison. I screamed into metal walls and cried for a man who never loved me. But I walked out with something more. Not redemption. Not forgiveness. But purpose. This story is not just about the sin. It is about surviving it. And becoming something new.